Yo, what's up guys? Happy Friday. In this video here, I want to talk about this situation that happened last night with what reports are saying was a small nuclear reactor in Ohio. Really weird. That was the headline I saw last night. Emergency crews investigating reports of possible small nuclear reactor in an Ohio garage. And when I first saw that headline, I was like, yo, this is weird. You know, it caught my eye. I wanted to start tracking it, but I didn't want to share it. I didn't want to share it because it was still a developing story. I didn't have really any extra information on it. Some people, they like to jump the gun, just hit retweet and share stories instantly. But I like to take a few minutes and wait for that context to roll in. So that's what I did. A few minutes later, somebody sent me an update on Twitter, and this update was from local news reports in the area. It said, this man, added to the story, man reportedly called officials saying that he sustained radio frequency burns while working on what he called a quantum physics generator. What? Quantum physics generator? That was actually coming from the local news station in the area there. So this actually didn't have anything to do with a small nuclear reactor, or I don't know what I saw, some news reports stating it, but there was a lot of confusion in the beginning because 40 homes were evacuated, the hazmat, a bunch of fire trucks were called in. So some news reports were saying it was a fire in a house, some say small nuclear reactor, all sorts of crazy things. But according to a local reporter there whose Twitter I found, she was posting actual photographs on the ground there of the situation, reporting what was said in the calls to 911 and dispatch. The guy actually called 911, said that he got hurt while working on a quantum physics generator. Wow, so when I saw that, the first headline said small nuclear reactor. I was like, what the heck? Now, we're getting a little more clear picture. Quantum physics generator? When I saw that, things were getting real weird up in my head. And, I was going into like the multi-dimensional chess mode. How the heck is this getting into the media? Quantum physics generator? What the heck? In fact, my initial reaction was, I was thinking it was some sort of like, I don't know, white hat op to start initiating disclosure of free energy technologies in some way. I don't know, man. I mean, with this timeline here we're on in 2019, it's been weird. It's been weird, and it's only going to get more weird. So we have to really expect the unexpected. And I didn't know. I'm like, shoot, is free energy disclosure going to come out of a freaking garage? Is that what we're in for at the end of 2019? So that was my reaction, but I was still waiting for more information to come in. I was making this Twitter thread about it, just giving my thoughts and information as I found it. So as I found that local news reporter Twitter thread and started scrolling through it and seeing some of the quotes and some of the key words that were said, apparently on that phone call that the guy, he was telling authorities he was working on like quantum physics, a particle accelerator type stuff, capacitors, things like that. He was saying this on the phone call to 911 and then saying he got hurt. And then I also found a video feed from the ground there with all the fire trucks in the neighborhood. And then in this video feed, they actually showed the dude. They showed the guy. He was in his like late 20s, early 30s. He was a pretty young guy, maybe my age or a little bit older than me. And there was a video of him being loaded into the back of one of the ambulances. And he looked fine. He looked totally fine. He was able to walk. He was able to get himself into the ambulance. It started getting more weird for me, right? So my reaction then shifted from, that multi-dimensional chess ideas, theories in my head to like, this is getting a little weird. This might even be, I saw somebody with a great take on Twitter. They said maybe the deep state's trying to, pull some malarkey, pull some skullduggery to try to get ahead of disclosure. Maybe make some sort of psyop, have a guy hurt himself, try to make working on this type of technology, at home in your spare time, make it illegal or something like that. And I could have saw that happening. That in my head was, I was trying to, do the equating in my head, do the analyzing. Is that possible? Again, I don't know. And then the last possibility in my head, of course, it could just be a nothing burger. Of course, it could just be a guy who was getting way over his head with some experiments into free energy, 0 point sort of technologies. Could have just bit off way more than he could chew with that, sustained some injuries, and then called the feds. But even that possibility, which is probably the most likely one, honestly, even that one's a little weird. Because quite honestly, if I was working on some sort of free energy device in my garage and I suffered some sort of injury from it, I sure as hell wouldn't call authorities, 911. Sure as hell wouldn't call them. And I most definitely wouldn't tell them over the phone that I was working on some sort of device, even if I called it a quantum physics generator as some sort of vague term, whatever a quantum physics generator even is. So that seemed weird to me. And then, of course, him being fine. Like, why didn't he just go to the hospital? Why did he need to call 911 and say those things over the phone in the first place? Why didn't he just go to the hospital? And in fact, when looking at history, the history of free energy inventions and sciences, and especially the inventors that made the devices, usually this stuff does not. Well, number one, the inventors know that they're not going to call the feds or, not going to say those sorts of things over the phone that could expose themselves, because the intelligence community, they have a very keen eye on anybody working on that sort of technology or science or physics. Very keen eye on it. And if in history, throughout the decades, even before the internet, if any sort of whisper, any sort of slight hint caught the ear of anybody in the intelligence apparatus, boom, lights out for them. The black suits come in, and the free energy inventor gets paid off, gets blackmailed, maybe gets suicided, maybe his warehouse mysteriously burns down, something like that. And then not a lick of it will get in the media at all. It'll all just go black, get covered up. So, I still have a lot of unanswered questions in my head. I'm sort of seeing, now that we're on to the next day, this happened last night, almost 24 hours later. Now I'm looking at the media. I'm trying to see if this will blow up into the mainstream media, because that might give a little bit more clear picture as to the agenda, the greater agenda, or the motive behind this. We're not really seeing that, quite honestly. This really didn't get farther than like local news, and then a bunch of people on Twitter that got like triggered by it and saw the small nuclear reactor thing and then retweeted it without doing any due diligence into research what was really going on. Yeah, I don't know, man. I really don't know. Some deep state psyop to get ahead of disclosure and then make this sort of stuff illegal. I don't know. Nothing burger, probably, but still weird. And a guy working on this sort of stuff in his garage, more unanswered questions with that one. Like, it's going to take some serious logistical support to do anything that this guy seems to be claiming or alleges that he was doing. I mean, it's going to take some infrastructure set up in your home. It's going to take some money to do. You're going to need some technical know-how. Seriously, I mean, free energy sciences is completely different than everything where, the misinformation we're typically taught in universities. It's a very occulted, it's very hidden, secret science. It's very confusing. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, So somebody that's like my age or like his early 30s, and he looked like he was by himself doing this stuff. Yeah, I don't know, man. Still, I don't know. So anyway, those are my thoughts on that. Those are the possibilities. Just some situational awareness, some information about it I wanted to share with you guys. And that's all. Quantum physics generator, pretty crazy. But anyway, I want to take a minute here just to talk a little bit about free energy technologies. So, being this story is what it is, guy mentioning quantum physics generators, and it is getting out into the media, getting shared around, just a great opportunity to talk a little bit about what free energy technologies really even are and the sciences behind it and how it exactly has been suppressed for so long. And you have to understand, like I mentioned a minute ago, what we're taught in our educational systems about history, about physics itself, just so much of it is based on flawed foundations. It's misinformation. There's a lot of great individual bits of data that our universities and colleges and textbooks from them give us, but a lot of the big picture understandings and foundational knowledge is false, and it's wrong, and they think it's true. And that's why so many things that mainstream science is doing these days is leading them down dead ends, because they don't understand that their foundations of physics are wrong. And we can look back to 100 years ago, farther than 100 years ago, all the way back to Nikola Tesla, even before him with John Keeley and others around then as well, T. Henry Murray. They were all doing research into zero-point energy physics, a type of science that really is true science. So it's actually going on, but it's far different than what mainstream universities will teach us these days. And they were finding that there's this interrelationship between space and time. Time is not outside of space. There's almost this reciprocal nature to them. And they were also finding a balanced reciprocal nature between electricity and gravity as well. And the fact that we live in this electric universe, it's not gravity that's running things, it's electricity. And then everything's in motion, everything's spinning, has this angular momentum. Well, how does that play into electricity and gravity? And also the influence of space and time, and how can you influence matter with electromagnetism itself? So all these sorts of things, all these sorts of ideas. Shoot, Tesla was working on that, John Keeley, all those guys back then. And then throughout the years since then, there's been others. You had the Bedini brothers in Idaho who were working on magnetic resonators, creating more electricity than it took to run them. Sometimes they call them over-unity devices because they're creating more electricity than goes into the device to run it. So the Bedini brothers, we have John Searle with his Searle device that not only has electricity creation behind it, can tap the 0 point to create more electricity than it takes to run it, but it also had levitative effects as well. So energy creation and levitation, they actually go hand in hand. So incredible stuff, right? Wow. Does that piss you off? The fact that the deep state, the powers that be, they've literally suppressed not just the technologies, but the sciences behind them. They've screwed with our heads for so long, and we could have had a completely different society, completely new paradigm, if we could have actually reached the potential that, unhindered, we should be able to reach. We would have reached, but we haven't, because we have these, social engineers been tinkering with our society for so long. And also in that same time frame that all these inventors were building out these devices, that the intelligence apparatus, the deep state, rogue intel communities, they've been vehemently suppressing this stuff from getting out into the domain. So that's why I said, any whisper of a device being built, sometimes when these devices are being made, simply turning them on will pump out a resonance, and then that resonance can be tapped and located. And then that's how the CIA or deep state will know what one of these devices is being built. It's not with every device, but some are like that. And nevertheless, if they find out, they will come down on anybody building such a thing. And that's because you might wonder, why haven't these technologies gotten out and helped us all? Well, these technologies would lose the deep state all of their power, through and through, right there, 100%. They would lose it all, because we're talking a multi-trillion-dollar a year business in fossil fuels and oil and gas and coal and electrical wires and centralized power grids. It's trillions of dollars a year. And not just that, but like I said, energy creation from the 0 point goes hand in hand with electrogravitics, anti-gravity, for lack of a better term. So we're also talking about a completely redesigned infrastructure. We wouldn't need cars anymore. We wouldn't need planes. We could travel literally like that. Almost free. Almost for free. The only money it really takes to create these free energy devices is just what it would take for the research and development of it. Once you got it powered up, it's creating more electricity than it takes to run it, and then you can just start powering up more stuff, This is why free energy tech and the sciences behind it, relearning what the hell is really going on with our reality and the potentials that we have here, one of the biggest passions that I have, because it's going to redesign everything. And that's where we should already be as a society, but we're not. So we got to get there quick. We got to get there quick, and we can get there quick. All right. So there's a little bit of ranting, a little bit of monologue for you guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Talking free energy devices. I think what's going on in Columbus, Ohio, I don't think it's much. I just think this guy, I don't know, he might have been confused. We'll see. We'll see if there's anything more to it. But that topic of free energy, please research that, because it's incredibly enlightening. It's incredibly liberating. Research the ideas of, say, Nikola Tesla, Walter Russell, Victor Schauberger, and even the names of like John Hutchinson and others like that. These individuals, Ed Lee Skellnan, Coral Castle there in Florida, these sorts of ideas of vibrational physics, magnetic resonance-based, electric-based physics, right? A lot more that we have to learn, everybody, and that's why I'm excited for this awakening, because there is so much to learn out there. Really, science these days thinks it knows everything, but it doesn't know jack shit. And that might seem scary, but on the other hand, I look at it as like incredibly exciting, because that means there's so much out there for us to learn, and so much more discovery that we have yet to do, and so much more technological possibility that's, it sucks it's been hidden, but on the other hand, it's a beautiful thing that you and I have been born right here to be able to learn about it, get it out into the public, and start getting our hands dirty and actually changing society, literally. So there you go, guys. Free energy, it's coming. And that's all for this one. Done.